All right, so as a small market team, the A's annually have trouble keeping players. And, this happens to many teams, but in particular the A's. And the A's sometimes will be lazy and won't offer guys contracts that truly deserve it. And then they'll go on and be an all-star elsewhere, or they'll win a World Series somewhere else. And there's plenty of examples over time. Some that come to mind. I mean, Ben Zobrist, on the A's for a short time. It was great for us, but went on and then won the World Series with the Cubs. It's just, that's one example. And there's many, many more. But I want to talk about, a couple guys that currently are, just very much succeeding on other teams that recently were on the A's. So let's jump right into this. This guy is obviously the most controversial out of the ones I'm going to say because the A's very well could have kept him, and he was a fan favorite. Marcus Simeon, right? Marcus Simeon was our great middle infielder from 2015 to 2020, and, I just loved Marcus Simeon. His heart and soul, the fact that he was a native to the Bay, I mean, he just brought everything, and he was an MVP candidate in 2019 with a 285 average. And this year, he is very much an MVP candidate in my eyes with Toronto. The A's obviously weren't willing to re-sign him. And he's hitting 269. His OBP is great at 340. It's, one of the highest it's ever been since his really good 2019 campaign. He's hit, he has 156 hits, which is, he's on pace to really, at least tie that 2019 mark. He's hit the most home runs he's ever hit this in his career, 39. I mean, imagine if the A's had this guy again. I mean, it would just be so much different. So that's the biggest example. The next one, Max Muncie. And I'm talking the Dodgers Max Muncie, not the Max Muncie the A's drafted. This one's an interesting one because he wasn't great on the A's. He was on the A's for 2 years, 2015 and 2016. And he hit 206 his first year, not good, 186. But coincidentally, he doesn't really play in 2017, 2018. He goes from a 186 average to a 263. And, I'm a believer in the batting average not really defining a player. And I think that's the case for Max Muncie. I mean, you look at his homers. He has 32 homers this year. Imagine the A's having that, and obviously I'm not blaming the A's necessarily for getting rid of guys like this because they didn't know he was going to be good, but I'm just saying the talent that comes out of Oakland that goes elsewhere, it changes. He had 32 homers. He had 35 homers in each of his 2018 and 2019 seasons, respectively. And right now he's an MVP candidate. So those are two guys that are raking right now, and he's an all-star. He's a two-time all-star, World Series champ. Now, this next one I want to talk about is a more recent success. Frank Schwendell. Frank Schwendell was a player on the A's for a very short amount of time. He was only on the A's for 8 games. He only had 3 hits on the A's, and he only hit 150 on the A's. But right now, the A's dealt him to the Cubs, and he's hitting 366 on the Cubs. I mean, I always saw a lot of opportunity in Frank Schwendell, even though he was only on the A's for 8 games. The 8 games, I remember it was in July, he was pretty good. He hit a homer. I mean, that's one that hurts because I'm hearing his name so much. He's really making a name for himself in Chicago. And the fact that the A's had him and just, didn't really give him enough of a chance, it's annoying. And, he's played in, not that many games, and he's had 55 hits, 12 homers. I mean, the Cubs are not doing good, but he is, the diamond in the rough for the Cubs right now. Frank Schwendell. I mean, I think he's a potentially great future player, and obviously, he has been on the Royals, and he was on the A's, and I mean, now the Cubs, and I don't know. I think he's going to be good. Now, this next one, like Simeon, is very controversial. This is Liam Hendricks. Liam Hendricks was the A's closer. And he was, obviously he started out as a starting pitcher in 2016 for the A's. He transitioned to closer. He became the best closer in baseball 2020. In the shortened season, he was one of the main reasons we were so good and won the AL West. Now, similarly to Simeon, the A's were not willing to pay him. the money he requested, and he very much deserved it. I mean, he's the best closer in baseball, and unfortunately, the White Sox picked him up. And this one hurts the most. Maybe Simeon is about equal to this, but it hurts the most because we are looking at an A's team right now whose bullpen cannot do anything. Their bullpen is terrible. And having a guy like Hendricks would have won us a lot. I honestly think we could be first in the division if we still had Hendricks. I mean, that's a crazy hypothetical, but you know, he is just a great player. This year he's 8-3, a couple blown saves. He has 34 saves this year. But I mean, I'm not going to blame him because Lou Trevino blows saves left and right. So, I mean, I would much rather have Liam Hendricks, who's everyone knows is a stud, and he was developed in Oakland. He's been, you know, in the league for a little while. I mean, I'd say he's a veteran. He's been in the league for about a decade, but the bulk of his career was spent with Oakland, and I think it's so annoying we can't have him anymore. You could tell he loved playing on the A's. You know, he just brought that intensity. So 2 more. Next one, this one is a little more subtle because he didn't play that much on the A's. Tommy Listella. Tommy Listella joined the A's last year in a trade that involved A's prospect. Well, I guess he wasn't really a prospect anymore. Franklin Barretto. The A's traded Barretto to the Angels for Listella. And I remember thinking, okay, I've heard Listella's name before, but who is this guy? And then he comes and he absolutely, every time he's up to bat, he's getting on base. That's how it was in 2020. And the A's didn't have Matt Chapman. You know, obviously last year a big injury to him, and he missed the remainder of the season. So they had to shift guys around. They had Jake Lamb at third, and then they had to put Listella in the middle infield with Simeon, and he was great on the A's. You know, he made great defensive plays. He, you know, I believe he had 289 on the A's, but he was only on them for a little while, so that's still really, really good. And I mean, he went to the Cross Bay rival, San Francisco Giants, and this year he's not doing as good as he was on the A's. He's hitting 241, 5 homers, but I mean, the Giants are so good. It's like he's depth, honestly. But yeah. Next one, this one is a lesser known player, but Jonah Heim. I wouldn't say he's necessarily killing it right now, but he's a clutch player. Jonah Heim, he was on the A's last year. He's a catcher. And they didn't really, you know, it didn't seem like the A's really needed him or valued him last year because they had Sean Murphy, and, you know, that's who they used. But, you know, he's on the Rangers now, and he hit a go-ahead homer against us a couple days ago, so I thought, wow, we just had this guy. And he also, I believe, was one of the first times in franchise history, if not the first, that a Texas Rangers player hit a walk-off home run in back-to-back nights. He has that clutch ability, Jonah Heim. He's not the best ball player, but he is clutch. And this year, he's, like I said, I mean, he's hitting 202. Not great, but he has 9 homers. And, I mean, we could have used depth. I don't think we need another catcher, but that's a notable player. So, those are 6 guys. And I bet there's plenty more that the A's, you know, just weren't willing to re-sign, or just, you know, didn't take a chance on, or didn't give a chance at all, and are just raking right now. I mean, some of these guys, and of course Liam Hendricks pitching, and yeah. Anyways, guys, thought I'd talk about that. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I'll see you guys later. Go A's.